All right, Miss Roberts, we're sorry you had car trouble this morning. I'm glad you could make it. Commissioner Elam had a little car trouble too, so it's going around. So don't feel bad. Whenever you're ready.
Is it on? Yep. Everybody can hear? All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, my name is Stephanie Roberts. I am here on behalf of Walmart Stores East, LP, and Sam's East, Inc. On March 5th, 2015, Walmart intervened, which petition to intervene was granted on March 25th, 2015. Subsequently, we filed the direct testimony of Kenneth E. Baker, who is the Senior Manager of Sustainable Regulation for Walmart. That was filed on May 14th, 2015. And as with the two Duke dockets before this commission, Walmart's concern primarily related to the ability of Walmart and Sam's in South Carolina to enter into these leasing arrangements with third-party solar providers, as set forth in page 5 of Mr. Baker's direct testimony. And as with the Duke dockets, Walmart was a participant in the settlement conference and again appreciates all the hard work that ORS put into organizing and getting the parties together for the settlement conference. The conference itself, during those discussions, the parties addressed the various recommendations that were set forth in Mr. Baker's direct testimony, and in particular SCE&G's BCA program language. So the clarifications were made to what was originally submitted, and those appear at paragraphs B10 through B12 of the settlement agreement on page 7. As a result of the agreed upon language changes, Walmart was a signatory to the settlement agreement and believes that it's consistent with the Distributed Energy Resources Act 236 and the parties' agreement that day. We thereafter requested that Mr. Baker be excused from testifying today, and that was granted on May 28, 2015. The same day we filed the verification for Mr. Baker's pre-filed direct, and today we request that Mr. Baker's testimony, his pre-filed direct testimony, be stipulated into the record as if given orally from the stand. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Baker's testimony will be stipulated into the record as if given orally from the stand. Okay. All right. Mr. Culley.
Make sure we're on here. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the Commission. At this time, task would like to call Justin R. Barnes. So please.
Welcome back, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you.
If you would raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And good afternoon, Mr. Barnes. Could you please state your full name and business address for the record?
Justin Barnes. My full business address is, 401 Harrison Oaks Boulevard, Suite 100, Cary, North Carolina.
Thank you. And by whom were you employed and in what capacity?
I am a policy research manager at EQ Research, LLC.
Did you cause to be filed in this proceeding pre-filed direct testimony consisting of 19 pages?
I did.
And were the answers given in the testimony prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
They were.
Do you have any corrections or changes at this time?
I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
They would.
Okay, Madam Chair, I ask at the pre-filed testimony of Mr. Justin Barnes on behalf of the Alliance for Solar Choice, be received into the record as if given orally from the stand.
All right, Mr. Barnes' testimony will be read into the record as if given orally.
Thank you. And Mr. Barnes, did you also have two exhibits pre-marked as JRB1 and JRB2?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any changes or corrections to those this time?
I do not.
Okay, Madam Chairman, Move that the exhibits accompanying Mr. Barnes' testimony pre-marked as JRB1 and JRB2 be identified and received into the record.
All right, Mr. Barnes' pre-filed exhibits JRB 1 and 2 will be entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 5. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Barnes, have you prepared a summary of your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please provide that for the commission?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My testimony in this proceeding discusses how South Carolina Electric and Gas's Distributed Energy Resource Program, or DER program proposal, meets the requirements of 2014 Act 236 and the settlement agreement entered into in docket number 2014-246-E, the predecessor to the current DER proceedings. In line with this discussion, I suggest that SCE&G modify its proposal to 1, establish an incentive for customer-sited solar resources that acts in conjunction with net metering. Clarify that community solar program participation will not reduce opportunities for customers to receive incentives for installing on-site solar generation. And 3, withdraw the experimental solar leasing proposal until it can provide further details on the program terms and how the program will operate. With respect to incentives for customer-sited resources, I also recommend that incentives be assignable to installers or third-party leasing providers, and that system size limits be based on a customer's annual electricity consumption rather than peak demand. The proposed settlement agreement addresses all of the concerns I raised in my testimony and my accompanying recommendations. First and foremost, the proposed settlement agreement establishes a 9 megawatt performance-based incentive program for systems of 20 kilowatts or less, and in the written summary that should read residential systems of 20 kilowatts or less. This incentive acts as a supplement to net metering and utilizes predefined capacity benchmarks and incentive step-downs. This type of program design promotes market certainty for prospective solar customers and solar providers, encourages optimal siting, operation, and maintenance of participating systems, and allows maximum program budgets and costs to be known in advance. As a consequence of these virtues, this type of incentive model has been utilized throughout the country in many state and utility incentive programs and has proven to be effective at stimulating the development of customer-sited solar. In addition, the proposed settlement agreement eliminates my concerns regarding whether community solar participation would reduce the availability of incentives for on-site solar generation, since the 9 megawatt program target is not affected by participation in the company's proposed community solar program. Finally, the proposed settlement agreement incorporates the recommendations I make in my testimony regarding incentive assignability, the methodology for establishing system size limits for incentive program participation, and the withdrawal of the experimental solar leasing program. For these reasons, the Alliance for Solar Choice supports the proposed settlement agreement and requests that the Commission approve it. This concludes the summary of my testimony and how it relates to the terms of the proposed settlement agreement. Thank you.
And Madam Chairman, and Mr. Barnes is available for questions from the commission and non-settling parties.
All right, any questions from non-settling parties? Commissioners? Commissioner Fleming?
Good afternoon. Could you talk a little bit about why it's important for the RECs to be returned to the customer, the residential customer, or the leaseor after the incremental payments have been completed?
Certainly. So, this is probably, I guess, from a maybe like a legal standpoint, less important for residential customers than it is for commercial customers. A residential customer might want to retain their RECs just because then it's kind of that customer's own internal knowledge that yes, I am utilizing green energy, and you can't necessarily say that when you've sold the RECs that are associated with the energy. For commercial customers, there's I think a more profound implication in that if they were to claim in advertising or any other kind of publication that they were utilizing green energy when in fact they didn't own the renewable energy credits associated with that energy, then they wouldn't be telling the truth because they had unbundled kind of all of those positive environmental attributes. And I think the rationale for saying that the RECs return to customer ownership, upon the completion of the program is solid in the sense that, oftentimes, you can characterize the provision of an incentive as, in exchange for something, and that in exchange for something can be a renewable energy credit. It's often the case in, state or utility renewable energy incentive programs that when the customer is provided an incentive, the customer surrenders their RECs for a defined period of time, be it until the program costs are paid off, or 10 years or 20 years, just depending on what the program details actually are. So I think, it's important for residential customers in a personal sense. It's important for commercial customers in kind of a marketing and business and legal sense. And the rationale for saying that, the end of the program is effectively the end of REC surrender is it's rational.
Okay. Once this happens, or even before, is there a need for additional education or outreach to talk about what the potential benefits are? I guess more to the commercial customer or to the leaseor. I'm sure the leaseor understands.
I think a commercial customer should definitely be aware that before they start making green claims, if they don't own the RECs associated with that energy, even if they've got a system on their roof, that they shouldn't be making those claims. I mean, that's an element of knowledge that they should be aware of. In terms of, I guess I'm not clear on I think the other part of your question about the benefit. I guess the benefit would be that they're, abiding by the standards that have kind of been put in place for advertising green products in the marketplace.
Okay. But there's a value to those RECs.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, there can be a monetary value. The monetary value, say, for RECs in South Carolina right now is probably very little, in the sense that most RECs that are produced by facilities located in South Carolina, or actually, to my knowledge, RECs produced in facilities located in South Carolina wouldn't qualify for any other state's solar carve-out, with the exception of maybe Missouri. So the market in which you could sell those, because they don't really qualify anywhere else, is pretty limited, and it's probably limited to the voluntary market, where prices tend to be a lot lower than prices would be in a state that has a solar energy standard and is requiring its utilities to purchase RECs in order to meet that target. So from a monetary standpoint, the value of South Carolina RECs these days is pretty low.
But it could be, they could give them to like the PACE program?
Yes, they certainly could. Yeah, okay.
So that would...
Certainly, yeah, there's a value in that, and I don't recall the precise amount that PACE pays for RECs through that program, but I believe it's on the order of 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and that might be the standard rate.
Pardon me.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I was interrupted. I've got to eat my mic too, so. Could you repeat that again?
Sorry, yeah. So, yeah, I had, thank you for reminding me, I had forgotten about the Palmetto Clean Energy Program, and yes, there is a fairly tangible, sizable financial value to selling RECs into the PACE program that ultimately, in a way it is kind of the voluntary market in the sense that people, buy those RECs, people of South Carolina utilities buy those RECs, for their own reasons. And I believe the incentive right now is 5 or 6 cents, something along those lines.
So residential could make use of that as well?
Yeah, in my understanding, I think the standard offer for the Palmetto Clean Energy Program is for systems under 6 kilowatts. And then what you might get for a system that's larger than that would be, I guess, competitive. Actually, the SCE&G witnesses may know a little bit more about precisely how PACE operates than I do.
Okay. So they could probably go to the company or to ORS to get this information.
Yeah, or I mean, PACE has a website, obviously, and they lay out the terms and conditions of what their offers actually are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, commissioners, any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just want to follow up, one brief follow-up to the question Commissioner Fleming was asking you about the benefits of it in South Carolina with us not having a renewable portfolio standard in this state. You mentioned that the commercial customers, I guess, for their standpoint, in your mind, is to truthfully advertise that they're green or so forth, and you mentioned not or very little benefit to the residential customers, and then you talked about in monetary terms. Other than selling it back to the PACE program or something else that you mentioned, what other benefit would there be to the customer, be it residential or commercial? Are there any tax, particularly as it pertains to a small commercial customer, would there be any tax benefits, or what other tangible benefits are you aware of?
Well, and I guess I'm not aware of any tax benefits for renewable energy credits. It's they're an incentive and something that exists apart from tax policy. I think I misspoke when saying that I don't think there are benefits to residential customers, in retaining their RECs, because those may be intangible benefits in the kind of the good feelings that come from knowing that you're contributing to producing solar power, and that you own those attributes. And I think for some people that can be a very powerful motivating factor. It's not necessarily for everyone, but for some people, and in particular the early adopters of solar, it probably is a powerful motivating factor. So there is that benefit, but it's less tangible than being able to make green claims, because the fact of the matter is nobody's out there policing residential green claims in the way that they would advertising from a commercial business. Intangible benefit, and no additional tax benefits to my knowledge.
I see. I'm just wondering, would it not? I mean, I know you're talking about long term, it going back to the ratepayer, but what your opposition, I guess, would be to the company having those RECs, other than the benefits you just described.
Oh, I don't oppose the company when they provide an incentive, owning the RECs. That's a pretty standard industry practice. Where I think in some cases some disagreement lies is whether or not net metering itself is truly an incentive, and whether or not, say, a utility should get automatic ownership of RECs associated with net metering, because for the duration of the performance-based incentive. There are most incentive programs would, require some sort of REC surrender. That's not unusual at all.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fleming has one more question.
Yeah, I meant to follow up, and he reminded me. When you said they can't claim green energy as long as the company holds the RECs, did I understand that correctly?
If you're referring to the company as South Carolina Electric and Gas, yes, there. I believe it's called the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission's Green Guide, which essentially provides guidance for making green claims, such as this brewery is 100% powered by renewable energy, and RECs are the basis for that claim.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Barnes, you may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, do you have any redirect, Mr. Cullen? Okay, all right, yeah, Mr. Barnes, you may step down then, sir. Mr. Holman?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. We'll be calling Hamilton Davis up to the stand, but as he's coming up, we had another witness who submitted testimony. That was John Wilson, and in light of the proposed settlement and some family obligations of his, we requested to have him excused today. The hearing officer agreed to that. We've now filed verification of his testimony, and so we would therefore move to have Mr. Wilson's testimony entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
All right, Mr. Wilson's direct testimony will be stipulated into the record as if given orally from the stand.
And also, I believe there was an exhibit to
Right.
his pre-filed direct testimony, and we would respectfully request that that be entered into the record as well.
All right, his pre-filed exhibits 1 and 2 will be entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 6.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, could you please state your name and business address for the record?
Hamilton Davis, 328 East Bay Street, Charleston, South Carolina, 29401.
Did you cause to be pre-filed in this docket direct testimony consisting of 29 pages with one exhibit?
I did.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, we need to swear you first.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I jumped ahead. Sorry.
He's excited.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
We don't think you'd lie about that.
Okay.
Do I need to? Are we okay? All right.
You did cause you had your testimony to be was pre-filed in this, including one exhibit in this docket.
I did.
Okay. And do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
I do not.
If the questions were put forth to you today and your testimony were asked today, would your answers be the same?
They would be.
And was the exhibit to your testimony prepared by you or under your direction?
It was.
Madam Chair, I would move to have Mr. Davis's pre-filed direct testimony entered into the record as though given orally from the stand.
All right, Mr. Davis's testimony will be entered into record as if given orally.
And we would also move to have his exhibit entered as well as an.
All right, and his exhibit will be entered into the record as hearing exhibit number 7.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, did you prepare a summary of your testimony today?
I did.
Could you please give that to the commission?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. After my testimony was filed with the Commission on May 14th, 2015, the South Carolina Coastal Conservation League and Southern Alliance for Clean Energy signed a settlement agreement with South Carolina Electric and Gas Company, the Office of Regulatory Staff, and other parties to this proceeding. The settlement agreement was filed with the Commission on May 26th, 2015. CCL and SACE support the settlement agreement as a reasonable approach to implementing Act 236 for SC&G's South Carolina customers. My pre-filed testimony commends SC&G for filing a petition to establish a distributed energy resource program and offers recommendations for improving the program as originally proposed. First, I recommended that SC&G not count community solar subscriptions towards meeting Act 236's target for rooftop systems no greater than 20 kilowatts in nameplate capacity, nor towards the no greater than 1 megawatt target to the extent the renewable energy facilities exceeded those sizes. Second, I recommended that SC&G consider ways to make its program more accessible to more potential participants, regardless of income level. Third, I recommended that the companies change their proposed program modification procedures to add transparency and predictability. Fourth, I recommended that the companies consider a step-down approach to altering incentive levels in the future. Fifth, I recommended that SCE&G clarify that renewable energy credits generated by its programs be maintained for the benefit of SCE&G customers. Finally, I recommended that the company revise its performance-based incentives to provide better certainty for customers. As stated earlier, CCL and SACE have signed the settlement agreement in this docket. The agreement addresses many of the above recommendations, and we believe that the settlement agreement implements Act 236 in a cost-effective manner and will provide SCE&G's customers with attractive options for going solar. We commend the company, other stakeholders, and ORS for their hard work reaching this compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the commission, witnesses available for questioning.
All right, thank you. Any non-settling parties have any questions for Mr. Davis? Okay. Commissioners, questions for Mr. Davis? All right. Mr. Davis, thank you, sir. You may
Thank you
step
all.
down. I'm sorry, Mr. Hall, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we just want to welcome you, and you're with,
I'm taking Conway with Central Electric.
okay, all right. Well, welcome, Mr. Hall. All right, Ms. Hudson?
The Office of Regulatory Staff calls Miss Linda Schaefer to the stand.
Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Schaefer, would you please state your full name and occupation?
My name is Linda Slayer Schaefer, and I'm an electric utility specialist at the Office of Regulatory Staff.
Did you file 12 pages of direct testimony in this case on May the 14th, 2015?
Yes.
And did you also file 8 pages of settlement testimony on May the 29th?
Yes.
Do you have any changes, additions, or deletions to either of those testimonies?
No, I do not.
If I asked you the questions that are in your direct and settlement testimony again today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes.
Do you have a summary of those 2 testimonies?
Yes.
Would you please share that with the commission?
Sure. The purpose of my direct testimony was to...
Speak into that mic, please, Ms. Schaefer.
The purpose of my direct testimony was to provide an overview of the Distributed Energy Resource Program Act, or Act 236, to describe the company's proposed Distributed Energy Resource Program, which we call DERP for short, and to make recommendations regarding the company's DERP. My testimony also addressed cost recovery and the company's plans to meet the goals of Act 236. ORS had a number of modifications or potential modifications to suggest to the company's DERP. Among those were accelerating the utility scale build-out, clarifying language in the petition, filing tariffs, postponing the approval for the lease finance program, ensuring accessibility to low-income customers and commercial and industrial customers, and amortizing capital cost. My testimony also addressed program modifications, the formation of a DERP advisory group, and cost recovery. Subsequent to the filing of my testimony, ORS entered into a settlement agreement with a number of parties in this docket. The 3 parties that did not sign on to the settlement agreement have advised ORS that they support it. The settlement agreement modified the company's plans for the utility scale build-out and the eligibility requirements for the bill credit agreement. It also created a performance-based incentive to be used in conjunction with residential net metering. The settlement agreement also defined appropriate system sizes, provided a time frame for filing tariffs. It spoke to the ownership of RECs in the future and addressed community solar cost and whether the community solar capacity should be used to meet compliance requirements in Act 236. The settlement agreement provided additional clarification for program modifications, the DERP advisory group, and cost recovery, including the definition of accounts. ORS supports the settlement agreement and finds it to be in the public interest and to be consistent with the spirit and intent of Act 236. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the intervening parties in this docket on behalf of my colleagues at ORS for their collaboration and for the contributions that they made to the settlement agreement. ORS respectfully requests that the settlement agreement be approved in its entirety. This concludes the summaries of my direct and settlement testimonies.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Madam Chairman, we would ask that Ms. Schaefer's direct and settlement testimony be entered into the record as if it were read orally from the stand.
All right, Ms. Schaefer's direct and settlement testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Schaefer is available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gao, any questions for Ms. Schaefer?
Madam Chair, I'm simply tempted to ask whether or not she rehearsed that testimony.
Well, yeah. No, we're all like, she doesn't have a single note. I'm impressed. We're so impressed.
I've been addressing my daughter as Madam Chairman for days now.
I love it. Commissioners' questions. Commissioner Randall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having been on stage a lot, I noticed you didn't have notes, and when you hesitated there for a moment, I've had one of those I've been on stage when I couldn't remember my next words before, so you did well. Just one quick question, and I want to go back. We talk about safety. Everywhere we go, the meetings we've had with everybody nationwide has talked about safety. And when we heard hearing earlier today, we were, I think everybody was saying that you would be certifying installers who were participating in the leasing programs, but not certifying just general installers that were just going to install solar panels on the roofs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So, and I know we're new in this business right now, but have you had any complaints or any installers that ORS sees as not being up to snuff?
No, sir, we haven't. And like you said, it may be a little early for that.
Yeah.
The industry has associations that police themselves, and installers are certified, and I don't know the name of the organization off the top of my head, but I know that the companies have indicated that they will work with certified installers, and the industry polices itself. There are also workshops that the Energy Office is putting on throughout the state now. They've already met with local governments, and they'll be meeting with building inspectors in the fall to help building inspectors be more familiar with what solar panels look like, what solar arrays should look like when they're installed properly in order to address the safety issues.
Okay, thank you. But ORS will, as with other programs, be fielding calls if customers have problems or questions about any of the utility programs.
Yes, sir.
Solar programs.
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Schaefer, I think you did impress the entire room.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if it's photogenic or if you spent a lot of time getting ready for us. I kind of believe you might have that.
I have spent a
talent.
bit of time, yes, sir.
I think. Let me ask you, on page 9 of Witness Rook's direct testimony, he states that the incremental cost for each customer class will be separately stated on each bill, similar to the manner in which basic facility charges are shown. Does ORS anticipate that this will generate inquiries from the public?
Yes, sir, we do. We'll be prepared for those.
Okay, and your Consumer Complaint Department will answer these calls?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, congratulations on the excellent testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Whitfield.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Ms. Schaefer.
Good afternoon.
I think as Mr. Guile and two of the commissioners have pointed out, we've all noticed and were impressed with no notes and thought you did a wonderful job, as already mentioned. But you may remember in the previous hearing, I think you were in the audience, and I asked a question to Ms. Ford and almost gave her the opportunity to punt to you, and she did not. But now that you are front and center, I'm going to ask a similar question to you, and it's come up several times in the hearing today and in the testimony about the carrying costs and of the under recovered balances. And you heard Mr. Rooks say that we would start over again each year, would start all over with the balance. Of course, Commissioner Hamilton just asked you about some concerns from ratepayers about those charges. But my question to you is kind of what it was in the other hearing to Ms. Ford. How concerned is ORS that undercovered balance might grow to a big number like we've seen in some, and I know you've testified in some of the fuel proceedings. Could you share with me ORS's concerns along those lines as to how those balances might be managed and what we could expect there?
Well, one way we've sought to manage the under recovery is by being very specific about the carrying costs. You'll see in this settlement that the company will earn the weighted average cost of capital on the carrying costs associated with the capital investments, but only 3-year Treasury plus 65 basis points on the the O&M. And so that will be one way to limit the carrying costs and the under recovery. And another way is something that y'all have mentioned already, which is bringing the amount that exceeds the caps back into a general under recovery lump sum and reallocating every year. That will help to control keeping that under recovery dragging on for decades. And then, what ORS always does, which is examine costs for prudency and make sure that the money that's being spent is being spent wisely and in compliance with the law.
Well, thank you, Ms. Schaefer, and we trust that ORS will be on top of that.
I think we'll be doing lots with the DERP here in the future.
Well, thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Howard.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I figured you would be. You been asked a question, you just want to go for it.
I'll let you ask the question first.
Okay,
For the benefit of the people sitting behind me.
that's true. Do y'all determine whether the installation of solar panels would increase or decrease the value of a residential home or make no difference?
We have not determined that. I think what we have determined is that it will depend on the person buying the home. If they were looking for solar panels and they can buy a home that has them already installed and those upfront costs are no longer theirs to make, then I think it will increase the value. If it's looked at as just something else that's going to need to be maintained and possibly make replacing the roof more complicated, then it will probably decrease the value. But I think the jury is still out.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hudson, any redirect? Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Schaefer.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other matters we need to take up? All right, I'll ask Mr. Butler to read the exhibits to double check, please.
Yes, ma'am. Be more than glad to. Exhibit number 1 is a settlement agreement in the case. Exhibit number 2 is Mr. Vietzkin's materials submitted earlier as a public witness. Exhibit number 3 is Mr. Raftery's pre-file direct exhibit. Exhibit number 4 is Mr. Rook's pre-file supplemental direct exhibits. Exhibit number 5 is Mr. Barnes' pre-file direct exhibits. Exhibit number 6, Mr. Wilson's pre-filed direct exhibits. And exhibit number 7 is Mr. Davis's pre-filed direct exhibits. And that does complete the list of exhibits, Madam Chair, that I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Proposed orders by July 1st, that's a Wednesday. Is that fine with everyone? Okay, excellent. Well, oh, I'm sorry. It is V as in Victor, EYTSKIN. All right. Okay, so July 1, and if there's nothing further, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and thank you again to our cameraman.